Hello and welcome to a very special How I Paint Things. Today we're going to tackle the Space Wolves, and these guys are awesome. They were explained to me once upon a time when I was a wee lad that if you take everything that's cool about a Space Marine and then add Norsemen, you've got the Space Wolves. They are gigantic space Vikings. They're a lot of fun, and luckily they're actually pretty easy to paint. Now in this I'm going to cover mostly the armour. I'm going to gloss over little things like painting and the details and what have you, because I've covered those elsewhere. You can find some of those in the Painting Space Marines video I've got up here. But for the Space Wolf, let's get started and have a look at what paints we're going to need for that nice blue armour. So to start off with, I've given him a blast of the Fang from a spray can, which luckily, very easy to do. Does most of the work for us, so he's that nice Space Wolves blue to start off with. Now, the very first step I'm going to do after that is to blast the model in Agrax Earthshade. No great surprise there. Once that's dry, we're going to do an overbrush of the Fang, which will actually bring it back up. When we put the Agrax Earthshade on, it's going to darken it down a fair bit, but it will take a little bit of that bluish tinge off, and we want to restore that. Now once we've gone and done those two stages, we're going to go on to the dry paint Storm Fang, and we're going to give it a fairly liberal blast of that. Okay, so dry brushing the whole model. And then to finish off any of the edges, we're going to do a light dry brush of Fenrisian Grey. And this will help sort of fake out that edge highlighting effect. So let's get started. Crack open the Agrax Earthshade. Now you can use whatever size brush you like. You're not going to be particularly careful with this. Just bucket it on all of the armour. You don't have to paint his face in, for example, if you've got a guy whose head is uncovered. But just go around and make sure that it's worked into all of the recesses. So take your time, and like I said, you don't need to be careful with this at all. Just get it on there. Now after about half an hour to dry, this is what we're left with. And whoo, boy is he dark. That's not really what we want. So what I'm going to do is I've got here the Fang again, and I'm going to dry brush this all over his armour. So I'm going to work it into my bristles. And see how much I'm leaving behind if I just jam it on the edge of the brush there, on the edge of the base rather. And then I'm going to go around and let's start on his backpack. This will be a good place to show this off. What we'll do is just back and forth, start scrubbing this Fang straight back on. But what we're going to do is leave behind, if you see all of the recesses there where that shading's collected, but we want to bring back that nice deep blue shade. So go around now, and you might find you need to go back for a little bit more paint on occasion. But we're going to brighten that armour back up, just dry brushing everywhere we come across. Now doesn't that look better? That's much nicer. We've got that blue back up to the Fang, but we still have all of our cool shading in all the recesses. Nice and simple. So what I'm going to do now is exactly the same thing again. I've got here Storm Fang, and I've prepped up a little bit in my brush just to do some dry brushing. Because as nice as this is, the Space Wolves are a little bit brighter. So starting from that backpack again, just so we can see what we're going to get, just start, might be a little bit much on my brush there, go back over and around we go, bring in that blue up. Now I've got a little bit of yellow in this brush, uh-oh. So I'm going to try this again with a clean brush. Alright, let's try on his chest here. I've got one of the base coat brushes, and we'll just go ahead and start lightly slapping on some of that Storm Fang. Now you'll notice in some areas it's going to catch on raised detail before it actually sort of hits the armour. But don't worry, just go over it a few times and you'll get that nice transition. Now ordinarily I like my marine armour to be quite smooth and precise, but in the case of the Space Wolves, style-wise, I kind of like the look when it's a little bit more chalky, when it's got that slight roughness to it. You might find you like it when it's tidier, and that's up to you. The main and sort of simplest way to get that difference is how much paint is on your brush when you're dry brushing. So you'll notice I'm having to go over a few times when I'm doing this, and I keep hitting the camera with the brush, sorry. But if I have very little paint on my brush, and I go over the same area a few times, I'm going to get a much smoother transition of colour, and that's quite nice. You guys might like that. But I'm going to go a little bit more, I guess, extreme, have some more paint on my brush. And if we get in here, You see I'm going to leave more of it behind when I start putting it on. So let's go around now. I'm going to fix up that yellowy tint to the back of his armour there, and I'll brighten up that thing. We're going to use Stormfang now. Now after a couple of passes with Stormfang, this is what we've got. And we're starting to get closer to that nice icy kind of blue armour that the Space Wolves have. So last what I've got is Fenrisian Grey, and I've got one of my old medium brushes, medium base brushes that I've trimmed down into a dry brush. And I'm just going to lightly start catching the edges of all of these really raised details. I don't want to do too much to the overall colour of the armour, but anywhere that there's a hard edge that I want to fake out I've spent some time highlighting, let's just hit that with a little bit of Fenrisian Grey. Now there is the majority of that armour done. Especially if we go around and have a look sort of on the sides of his legs here and on his backpack, you can see how that little bit of Fenrisian Grey just helps touch off the extreme edges of everything, and it looks, I think, quite nice. Now, as I mentioned, I do like my Space Wolves a little chalkier than some, but you can take a little bit more time and really make a difference with that. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead, and the first step I'll put on will be his lead belcher for all of the metallic details. Now I'm not going to cover in detail how to paint all these other sort of bits and pieces of the model because they're in other videos and that would just be repeating stuff you guys have already come across. But I will briefly mention lead belcher anywhere that you want to be metal and anywhere that you want to be that nice brassy gold that the Space Wolves favour. Because over the top of this you can put Balthazar gold and that'll make quite a nice difference. Make it easier to go on. At any rate, let's get started. I'm going to chuck on this lead belcher now. Now with the lead belcher everywhere, you'll find it's much easier to go ahead and put this Balthazar gold on some of those details you want to really make them stand out. So along the edge of the magazine on the gun here, these little talisman bits, wherever you want that stuff on, go ahead now with that too. Now with all of those base colours applied, it's time to go ahead and give them another wash. Now you can pick as many sort of different colours as you want to do for this. I'm just going to go ahead, go straight back to the old Agrax Earthshade. I've got myself just an ordinary layer brush, but you can do what you would like. So just go around now and, block in all of those areas with your wash. Then once those washes are dry, you can hit them with a couple of highlights. And then once you've got the highlights on them that you fancy, on goes his base. I'm just going to use some textured base paint for this one. And then with his base finished, our Space Wolf is complete, ready to crush the enemies of mankind in the name of Russ and the Allfather. Now, as with anything else that uses dry brushing as the basis of the armour, the real trick is in starting with just a little and building your way up. You don't want to put too much on to start with because, well, you can't take it off once it's on, but you can always add more. So start with just a little at a time. Now this is really easy to do, and I think the results are pretty cracking, especially for the Space Wolves. So if you guys enjoyed that or found something useful, feel free to get in touch. You can drop a comment down there in the old YouTube box. Both my Twitter and Facebook are linked there too. So as ever guys, thank you very much for your time. You enjoy the rest of your day.